Seems you weren't cooked thoroughly enough. It's time to turn you all into mincemeat. Do you think they need some more time on the spit?
This latest episode of May I Ask for One Final Thing had it all. It had grand battles, tactics, strategies, murder, personal sacrifices, characters getting wounded left and right, another love confession, and we can finally answer the question of what happens when a yandere goddess comes face to face with a gal who is suffering from main character syndrome.
You said your idea would work, and now I look like a fool! Do you not listen when I speak? I wish to become queen and make this kingdom mine. Some goddess you are.
Fume as much as you like, but you're the one who didn't follow my instructions. Half-measured thinking yields half-measured results.
Overall, this was a really fun episode. It blew by pretty fast, and because it goes by rather fast, it's very easy to miss a lot of the important stuff that is happening in this episode. So, let's break it down. Let's talk about why this episode is honestly an excellent example of what you should do in your own action writing.
And then they abandoned the plan and turned the field into one big chaotic mess.
Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, a channel for novice authors by novice authors, and because writing is an adventure, it's way more fun with friends. Now, like I said, in this episode, we just go right back into the war, into the battle that has been unfolding as Scarlet and the Dragon Riders are going up against all of these monsters and demons and are just kicking butt and taking names. But we left off with this standoff with the Falconians, and we get a pretty awesome little bit with Nanika and Lord Dios going up against brainwashed demi-humans thanks to Terranissa, and they actually do a pretty good job of holding their own, of not trying to injure or kill their fellow demi-humans, but still try to get to the leader. And thankfully for them, one of the elven leaders intercedes. And why is that? Well, because, Dios, you're not supposed to be here, you half-breed. And Dios actually does something quite admirable, where he gives up his own cherished wind powers that he inherited from his mother, who was an elf, and the sister to one of the elven lords, in order to secure an assurance that Falconia will withdraw. Man, if only it were this easy in Berserk. Meanwhile, Scarlet and Prince O-Face absolutely obliterate their way through a swath, or they cut a swath, however you wish to describe it. They basically just annihilate a battlefield full of monsters. Scarlet takes out thousands of the enemy with her bare hands, and Prince O-Face, in an attempt to impress her, basically turns himself into a human bomb because, well, he's not supposed to be able to die due to anything that attacks him from the outside, so he can superheat his armor and his skin and just unleash an absolute blast of flame. However, as we have learned from his very first fight with Scarlet, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's invincible, and he still takes a clobbering from using himself as a bomb, and Scarlet has to intercede and heal him, which he uses as, yes, she's touching me, and all I can think of is this moment from Gravity Falls.
An excuse to stand next to Mabel.
Don't turn this into a big deal.
Oh, I won't. I will.
Because that's absolutely the way that Prince O-Face is taking this, where he's all like, I'm so making this a big deal. She healed my wounds. And so, even though the war is still ongoing after the battle's done, he's all like, Scarlet, come with me. So that's where you will be with people who truly appreciate your strength, and we will be the most powerful power couple of all time. But Prince Julius intercedes and says, only when you've loved her for 10 years straight can you come back and say that to me, and then we'll see what happens. Which is another way of saying, don't you dare. I already came here. I've already made my confessions, and I am not giving up this gal for anything. And poor Scarlet, being as dense as she is, really doesn't know what to do with any of this. And believe you me, we're going to discuss why this is. This is just another incident of absolutely dense protagonist syndrome, which is supremely frustrating. Or might there be actually something a little bit smarter in the writing going on? In any case, with the monsters and demons turned back at least for a time, Julius is able to leverage all of these events to keep the other kingdoms at bay. No one expected Palatine to rebound so quickly, defeating all of the monsters and demons and putting on such a strong show thanks to their alliance with the Dragon Riders that they were able to, well, annihilate enemies from within. Falconia has stepped back as well, basically relieving them of two fronts in their multi-front war and allowing them to immediately shift forces to other parts of their kingdom in order to go against other soldiers should they come in. Palatine has not been divided and conquered, and the speed with which they've been able to react and win in these smaller battles has put these larger kingdoms on the back foot. And so Julius is quickly using his time to flex and everything, and when we get to this point in the analysis, I am going to gush about this because this is brilliant writing. And no, this is not even me trying to like chalk this up as something more than it is. No, this is actually great writing, which too many writers just completely bypass in order to enjoy a fight to the end between enemies. But while all of this is panning out, we get to go to Terenissa, who is talking with the Yandere goddess. And she's like, the plan should have worked. They should have been absolutely crushed. And the Yandere goddess says something just so fantastically awful. She's like, I told you should have just sent the armies throughout the land, crushing everyone. The goddess is looking to murder as many people as possible, hurt the god Kronos with losses, with his worshippers getting killed left and right. And Terenissa is like, no, I wanted them all to go to the capital, put the capital under siege because that's where the seat of power is. Then I would have come in and saved everyone, and then those in power would have realized I am the greatest ever, and I should be then designated as the new saintess, as the new princess, soon to be the queen, and I would be able to have my fairy tale happy ending. And the Yandere goddess is like, I see where you're going with this, and I'm going to let this continue to play out. Terenissa should actually be absolutely terrified that a goddess is just letting her run the show after a little bit of some back pushing and clapping back. Most gods and goddesses would not go for that. Terenissa is very clearly showing herself to be a bit of an idiot. In the past, we've seen that she can plan ahead, she can be masterful in her manipulation, and she does have a kind of blade put to Scarlet's back by having Nanika with the last bit of power and influence that she has over him cast a spell on Prince Julius. Something is about to happen. Terenissa can be dangerous, she can be wily, but as we're beginning to see is that she's someone who can't adapt to the situation very quickly. She had a big grand plan and scheme in mind, but the moment that began falling apart, she hasn't really been able to adapt very well. She's absolutely on the back foot, and whatever she's going to be doing with Prince Julius is more of a low blow than anything high-minded or strategic. And ultimately, this has reduced her to becoming a pawn to the goddess rather than the hero or the protagonist of her own story, able to move everything ahead the way that she wishes. So, bearing all of that in mind, let's talk about why this episode works so well from a writer's perspective. Not only is the humor good and the action is fine, the pacing is really good. Like I said, this episode breezes by really quickly, which is something that you want in an action-packed episode. You want it to roll along quickly. If a fight is taking too long, if it slows up too much, people lose interest. It's an absolute fallacy of most shonen anime and manga that fights should just go on and on and on and on and on. Now then, I say that as a guy who loves writing huge set-piece battles and loves having long fights. But even in my own experience as an author, as much as I love it, I can tell when it starts becoming a slog. And you do not want your audience to grow bored with the action, especially if your story, like May I Ask for One Final Thing, relies so much on the action. So you have to keep the pacing up, and one of the best ways that you can actually help to balance and pace out a much larger fight such as what's happening in this anime, where you have a war going on multiple fronts. You break it up. You have moments where you dive in deep with certain characters who are dealing with the immediate action on the battlefield, and then you cut on over to other characters where you then see them being strategic, being diplomatic, or working on saving the small folk. Doing these kinds of things help to, again, show the breadth of the world that you're dealing with. It helps to balance the action a little bit more with good character development, with world building, with plot setup and plot progression. What this episode did was phenomenal in terms of balance. And to that end, like I said, what Prince Julius does is phenomenal. With him stepping in, organizing all of these different moves of, okay, we need to make sure that Falconia is turned back and done so with as little bloodshed as possible because we cannot afford the bodies. We are going to work with the Dragon Riders to immediately deal with our threats within our own borders. And at the same time, I will give up some concessions. I will now allow them to pass through our borders freely, so that way we no longer have all of these confrontations. This is a whole-scale alliance, and I know that this is not going to be something that people are necessarily going to love within my own kingdom, but it is a necessary step to take. There is this give and take between these two sides. This is good politicking, because you can't have 100% of everything that you want without giving up something in return. So Prince Julius has saved his kingdom from within. He has formed a very powerful alliance and has bought himself goodwill with the Dragon Riders. That's very important, even though he went up against Prince Oface. In fact, by doing that, he's actually earned even more respect by going up against a berserker who could kill him. Prince Julius is not like Scarlet. He could not take on Prince Oface and survive. So by doing what he did, and by putting himself kind of in the middle of this conflict, he has gained so much respect. Now, this is where, I was so happy to see this. Prince Julius, understanding the threat that his kingdom is under, is immediately dividing his forces. While normally you would think, but you're such a small kingdom, don't you want to get all of your forces together into one compact area so that way you're able to get the most bang for your buck? Well, when you're being besieged on all sides, if you gather everyone together into one area, it becomes a whole lot easier to actually defeat you. Instead, what you want to do is you don't want to try to beat everyone all at once, but rather defeat the enemy in detail, meaning that you take them on one piece at a time and roll them up with the forces that you have, and do it in such a way that you break a much larger force. By sending Scarlet together with the Dragon Riders, he's able to deal with the demons and monsters in the immediate, while sending his personal entourage and knights to go and defend the next holy crystal that he believes that Terranissa is after, thereby halting her just long enough for a regrouping should they win. In the meantime, take the forces that should have been sent against the monsters and now put them up against the border, projecting strength. To all the kingdoms who thought that Palestine was suddenly going to fall, by seeing them immediately react against the monsters and demons and begin winning and earning an alliance with the Dragon Riders, suddenly this makes them think, if we fight, for one thing, we're going to be going up against fresh Palestinian troops. We're not going to be going up against anyone who's been ragged from a fight. This means we're going to lose a whole lot more people. We might outnumber them, but we're going to lose a whole lot more people than we initially bargained, and that's something that might not go over very well at home. On top of that, he now has an alliance with the Dragon Riders. What if those Dragon Riders suddenly flew back around and come and attack us? We might be overwhelmed because they have control of the skies. So immediately all the other enemy armies have to stop. It's not that they are not going to invade, but now they have to rethink their approach. By doing that, Prince Julius steals what we call the initiative, meaning that he is in charge of the flow of this war. He is the one taking action, putting others onto the back foot. He is the one who is calling the shots and making the demands on each and every single battlefield. But it's not just Prince Julius who's making all the great moves, and it's not just Scarlet either. We have to think about Nanika and Lord Dios, and especially Lord Dios, who again makes a great personal sacrifice in order to save his half-sister, and as well to gain a slight advantage for the kingdom by turning back the people of Falconia. So what's really great in this episode is that, again, Scarlet's not the one who's going to solve everything by just simply punching her way through it. Yes, she has great power. Yes, she can basically take down any enemy that she wants. And she is regrouping with the others, along with the little artifact that's been given to her by Lord Kronos in order to steal back the Saintess's power and thereby protect the kingdom. Yes, all of that's happening. We know that Scarlet's going to have her showdown with Terranissa, and it's going to be glorious, but a whole bunch of side characters are given their moments to shine throughout this episode. No one is left behind to just kind of be there and get carried along by her. They all have something important to do. Even if it feels small, it's important to them, it's important to the world, or it's important to the plot. This is what keeps all the side characters relevant, keeps the world feeling full and alive, and prevents the main character from just simply dominating everything and turning all of your build-up into just a stale pile of mush. Now, let's talk about Prince Julius's confession.
May I ask you something?
Make no mistake, you are the one who has failed to appreciate her. As if I would give her up to a man who only fell for her mere days ago.
You felt what way for 10 years?
Talk to me after you felt this way for 10 years.
What did you mean exactly?
About apple pie. It's even better with some ice cream. Would you like to try it?
Now that I think of it, it does sound rather nice.
So, granted, this is really nothing new. We know that Julius loves Scarlet. We also know that he has dropped loads of hints on her in the past. And once again, we see that Julius understands Scarlet better than I think that she realizes. Because when she finally approaches him and she's like, "What do you mean by you've been watching me and loving me for the past 10 years. What exactly do you mean?" Remember, this is a girl who was abused by her previous fiancé in such a way that, romance to her is just, that's someone else's thing. That's not anything for her. She's been treated, even by her brother, as just this brute who clobbers her way through everything and everyone. There's no room for romance in her life, and on top of that, Julius, to his own detriment, has made light of a lot of his romantic inclinations towards her. So, yes, she has good reason to doubt and question what he says, but let's also be honest, while the setup is there, at this point in the story, Julius has made enough romantic overtures to her that her not understanding what he is saying is an element of dense protagonistism. Ugh! Oh, and that's absolutely frustrating to me. I will admit, that did frustrate me a little bit. I still give it enough grace considering the build-up between these two characters and a pattern that has already been established. And on top of that, Julius's response to her, which was masterful considering the whole dense protagonist scenario. And it is that he does not immediately respond to her. We have this protracted silence. It's very awkward. And it's him effectively thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to do in this situation? And he's learned at this point that to be snarky is not the right thing to do. On top of that, he's just seen that there's another guy who is adamant about getting together with his girl. It's a real serious threat. Even though she has no interest in Prince O-Face, he's not going to let up. And there's plenty of evidence now that there's other guys who are interested in her as well. He needs to make a move. He can't be jokey about this anymore. So he goes back and he relies on something that happened earlier in the season, which was sharing the apple pie. So he's like, we should get some pie after all this is done. And even though she knows this is not answering the question at all, it is an invitation because Scarlet knows Julius well enough by now to know that he's not going to let this go. He's got something he wants to share with her, and she's open enough to that prospect. Scarlet's not very open, though, to us, the audience, with her own thoughts and feelings, which makes it a little bit difficult at times to really put our fingers on the pulse of what on earth is happening inside of that brain of hers other than clobbering people and bashing monsters into nice puce meat. But we have seen her interact enough with Julius to understand that she gets him to a certain degree. And she's not uninterested in him. There's some curiosity. There's some mutual affection. There is an alliance there. There's an understanding between them. And there are plenty of similarities as well, since they are both, in a way, outcasts within their respective circles. So, Scarlet being invited to have pie, which was a very positive experience with Julius, quite potentially the very first real positive experience with him since their time in school together, or maybe even that's really the first one where she really began to rethink who this prince was. It is a brilliant invitation on his part. Like, as he realizes, look, she didn't quite get the confession. She hasn't gotten it now a few times, but I do know that she really responded well to that apple pie. I can try to recreate that scenario and finally have a soft moment between the two of us where I can open up and fully explain myself. And by him setting aside his joking nature, not once but twice in this episode, really shows how serious he is about this, which then makes Tyrannissa's move to possess him kind of heartbreaking and frustrating and just vile, because you're like, Tyrannissa, you're getting in the way of my ship setting sail. But it works at the same time. This is not just Tyrannissa stepping in to stop Scarlet's love life. In fact, Tyrannissa probably doesn't even realize just how much Prince Julius likes Scarlet, or that Scarlet might like him back. No, this is a power move on her part to remove the one who is actually keeping the alliance together. Scarlet is the muscle, but Julius is the brains who's keeping everything together. If you remove the prince, you immediately throw the entire kingdom into disarray, and you might be able to break up whatever soft alliance is right now forming against you. This is what Tyrannissa's after, and she does know that because Julius is in cahoots with Scarlet, that it will be a personal and low blow to Scarlet, and she might even be able to use that as a way of sabotaging Scarlet once and for all and bringing her down. It's actually a pretty smart move, which again is kind of a little silly and frustrating in light of what Tyrannissa does, because Tyrannissa is very obviously giving up her own initiative to the goddess. It might not seem like that at first, but by not taking the goddess's more wide-eyed advice, or say wide-eyed, more as a broad-viewed advice into consideration, and realize, like, look, you're not going to be able to make some omelets without cracking some eggs, she is setting herself up for a complete failure, which, I mean, is good for everyone else because the Yandere goddess is seriously messed up. So this will save a lot of lives, but for Tyrannissa, this is going to backfire wonderfully. And so to wrap up, that's why this episode is honestly so well written. It understands its pacing, it's able to balance the action with the politicking, with the scheming, with the strategizing, with the character development. We get some good serious progression on the romantic side for Scarlet and for Julius. We get to see characters make personal sacrifices, some of which are a little bit shallow, like what Prince O-Face does, some of which are far more personal and long-lasting, like what Lord Dios gave up with his mother's inheritance, with the power that made him so great and mighty in the face of all the other knights. And of course, we get the further collaboration and scheming going on behind the scenes with the villains, and we get some brilliant geopoliticking, all within just a little bit more than 20 minutes. This is phenomenal, but let me point out, you can't do all of this without all of the buildup that's been happening over the course of this season. The season took its time to introduce these characters, to build them up, to set up all of the scenarios, and we are right now reveling in the fantastic payoff of all that setup, and we're now just along for the ride as everything is unfolding, and it's doing it wonderfully. That is why I love this anime, not just because it's fun, or because we have basically a gender-bent Saitama just wrecking everyone, but because it is a well-written story. So, with all that being said, I now want to hear your thoughts and insights into this latest episode of May I Ask for One Final Thing? Did I miss out on anything important? Did I get anything wrong? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please make sure that you like it, that you share it, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and check out the books that I have published and see how good of an author I am. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me on this incredible adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.